Allow me to introduce the next panel, Aaron Mankovsky from Pitango, joined by Moran and Yair Goldfinger, three titans of the Israeli tech community.
What? Over there? Yeah. Good morning. I want to welcome my friends here, Moran. How should I call you? A serial entrepreneur, an entrepreneur, a builder, all of the above. A great guy I know for many years, and probably will say a few words of what you're doing today. And Yair Goldfinger, who have been in the industry for many, many years. Built companies, sold some companies, and I think we're going to have a very interesting discussion. I myself, Aaron Mankovsky from Pitango Venture Capital, and I'm also the chairman of the IATI, which is Israel Advanced Technology Industries Association. We have a very interesting topic, which I'm very happy that most of the people before me talked about this, including we have some supporting force from Carlos here. It is a very interesting point. About 3 years ago, when we started change in at the time, a high-tech industry association, we said we need to build big companies. And that was a nice statement that some people thought we are saying it just to say. But we should remember that the industry, the high-tech industry in Israel, started with mostly large companies. The dream of an Israeli entrepreneur at the beginning was to be a CEO of a public company. The dream of, by the way, a US entrepreneur was the same. Now it's maybe the nightmare of an entrepreneur to be a CEO of a public company in the US, but it's a different story. When we look at the number of big companies, both in Israel and in the US, this number is going down. You know that in NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange, the number of public companies in the technology area went down by 45% from 2002 until 2010, for a variety of reasons. And when we're coming into Israel, and I want to refer to you after this opening, there are some people that will say, why do we need large companies? Because someone will say, and we know the old statement, that maybe we, the Israelis, will do the seeds of the tomatoes and that the Chinese do the tomatoes. And I want to start with this question first, Dov. Do we need large companies, and what's the implication of not having them?
Well, the question is, what do we want? If the question is, what's good for maybe the entrepreneurs, maybe the right answer is, go ahead, build a company, small company, sell it for $5 million. It's nice money, you'll be great. But if the question is relates to Israel as a country, the issue is totally different. We as a country, we not prosper by becoming the country which grows seeds only. People need to eat, they cannot eat seeds. And to buy everything from outside is not exactly the right solution. And therefore, I do believe that in some cases, companies should be sold. The target should be to grow companies and make them large companies established that employ not only engineers and programmers, but marketing people, logistics, sales, generally have headquarters here in Israel that enable people to learn how to grow large companies, go and establish other large companies. It's a chain that actually in Israel somehow in the last years was broken, which I believe is a sad story for this country.
So if I take this claim and go to you, Yair, some people say that we have very large companies here. We have the Ciscos of the world and the IBM of the world and the Intel of the world, who actually employs a lot of people. And maybe this should be our large company. What do you think? And you know what? Even if we look at I'm a bit cynical, if we look at the National Council for Economics of the government, the representative of the high-tech industry in Israel is Intel.
I guess at the end of the day, it's a question of mix. So we need a lot of them. We need, both big companies that are Israeli-based and both, foreigners or foreign companies that will, start operation over here. I don't think there's a straight answer. The only thing I know is basically that currently it's not the right way, which means currently it's heavily leaning towards bigger foreigners having buying Israeli companies, and that should change. In terms of what's good for the economy, I'm sure someone did the research on that, because at the end of the day, if you look on it, I got a feeling, but I never did the research on that I'm not 100% sure that for the economy itself, it's not better to have, big foreign companies working over here. Yeah, we're not going to get, in terms of the money, we're not going to get the corporate tax, but we're going to get the employment tax. In theory, it should be more stable because they're global, and they should help the economy more. But on the other side, they're looking at purely financial, which means the moment there is, I don't know, the shekel and the dollar can change, and we know that it's changing, daily, they can just decide, hey, let's cut the Israeli office and move it all to, I don't know, whenever China. And if it was an Israeli-based company, we could not do it, which means we're not going to, most chances, we're not going to cut, the people over here and move it to China. So for the long run and for stability, in my eyes, that's going to help more.
Just to support what you said, for those of you who read the paper this morning, Nokia Siemens, that opened their R&D center based on an Israeli company acquisition of Atrika, I think a few years ago, have decided to shut down the R&D center here in Israel as of yesterday. So it basically supporting your thesis here. But, when you talk and try to see what is preventing from Israeli companies to continue and grow. Because if we look at this, most of the Israeli companies in the 70s, 80s, and 90s became large companies. And there are some people that will say, and I want to give you another phenomenon, that in the US there is a similar phenomenon of growth, because today the public market, although some people here earlier said it exists, it doesn't really exist. Because in the past, when Dov actually had his company, M-System, you took a company from 2 men and a dog in the garage up until $30–40 million, and then the public market took them. But today there's no research, so the public market is waiting until about $100 million revenues. And for some people, it is a very long way. Some people will say, and I will refer this question to both of you, but starting with you, Yair, that the entrepreneur does not have the patience they want to sell. Some other people will say that we, the venture funds, don't have the kind of the breath and the air to go all the way to build it. So what's really the reason? Is it the market, the buyers, the entrepreneurs, the venture funds?
So one, I think that we need to differentiate between first-time entrepreneurs and second-timers. So in Israel, basically, and usually what I tell most of the companies I'm involved with when an entrepreneur wants to sell is that the difference financially of $0 to $2 million in your pocket is much bigger than the difference between $2 million to $100 million. Which means if they got an opportunity and it's a first timer, a young guy got opportunity to sell, it's really hard to stop him from doing it if he can get out of his mortgage, buy a house, which is getting way, too expensive over here, and, a car and so on. And sadly, we don't have Although it's actually starting to change slowly, but we don't have this, way of late firms or late stage VCs coming out and basically doing a small exit to the entrepreneurs, which is very common in the US. But we looked on it, all the biggest companies out there actually did it now, which went public. The entrepreneurs cash out a bit, something before. We don't have it over here. And that's something that you guys should go and change. Make sure that, by the way, even in ICQ, when we started in '96, one of our private investors bought from each one of us along the way $50,000, that's all. But for us, it was a fortune back then, and basically told us, hey, he made 10,000 from that 10 months later, but we were happy. Each one of us got his, a car or motorcycle and was able to cover the minus in the bank and continue and get a bit of pressure off, financial pressure. But it's many to you guys, late stage VCs, to go and help that, because otherwise the entrepreneurs, especially first timers, will sell.
I'll refer to that after Dov's answer.
I think that basically one of the problems in this country is that the chain of investment is unhealthy or broken. We have money here for seeds, we have money for VCs, but there are no private equities in this country. Today, to grow a large company, you need large money. I mean, there are very few cases, even Facebook actually, that could grow without huge investments. But to make a large company, it's expensive. In my first company, M Systems, we developed an ASIC. The cost of the ASIC from A to Z was less than $1 million. Today, how much money costs to build an ASIC?
Quite a few.
How much?
I don't know, 20 million?
I would say closer to 50. One of the things that I tried to do at Modu, one of the parts of the very large system was to have an ASIC, which was only, whatever, tens of millions of dollars. So it's costly. And you don't really take to the market today companies that their sales are very low. By the way, again, history, at M Systems, we went public. We raised $4 million at valuation of $11 million. Yes, 1993. It was really funny. But that was $11 million post money, I believe. But you can't do anything close to it today. Today, you have to be in sales of many tens of millions of dollars. You have to be close to profitability. You have to show a clear path of a future. You have to show that you know what you are doing. You can do it only when you are quite stable. For this, you need money. There is no money in Israel for that. There are very few, if at all, private equity funds in Israel that are dealing with high-tech. There are two, actually. They're not dealing with high-tech. And this is basically the core of the source, I believe, of the problem that you really cannot grow a company here. And entrepreneurs are selling companies whenever they can, because they will get into this the glass ceiling at some time, and they may be in position that they grew a company, worked very hard, and then the company vanished, and they have nothing, which again is very, very sad. There is a source for this. There is a source for that, and part of it is because in Israel the pension funds, all these mutual funds existing, are getting their profits not out of the success they've done, but out of the money they are managing. And that's huge. There's a huge benefit for them to do zero effort in their investments. Zero effort. The less they'll do effort in investing the money, the better they'll do in their bottom line. So they're doing what they're supposed to do. I would do the same probably, maybe I not, but most of the people would do the same. They would say, I have to maximize the profit of my fund. And the profit of my funds are not coming from the quality of the investment I'm doing, but from doing nothing practically and getting those 1.5% out of the billions of dollars that they are managing, and therefore they are not investing in private companies at all. They're not building private funds or private equities. They just don't care, not because they are bad people, because the regulation actually, the very stupid Israeli regulation, forced them to do that. And that's the core of the whole issue. And you see the consequences are the money, the pension money that we have that is managed very bad, I believe, and the lack of investment in high-tech and in small companies that practically takes the whole economy of Israel, which looks today very, very nice and very great, to a lesser good situation.
I'm in full agreement with you, by the way, on the fact that the public market and then later on growth players is a necessity for a healthy technology environment, because we see another phenomenon that today corporate technology, what I call, especially corporate American technology, is sitting on mountains of cash, and their innovation is going down every year, so the opportunity is great because it's going to come from startup companies. However, when you don't have the alternative of the public market, you basically are in catch-22 with these guys, and they are controlling the value. And you see that the value of M&A is going down every year because there is no alternative. So I absolutely agree with you. Go back to you, Yair, in terms of the VCs. I have to say that most VCs today understand that if they will not grow large companies in their portfolio, it will be almost impossible to make the returns that the investors are looking for. Yes, it used to be different, and for many VCs, kind of just making the exit was a target, but I think reality sinks in. You know, after 10 years, of the last 10 years, both in the US and Israel, people have realized that if you don't make a balanced portfolio, some companies you don't have a choice, and I will get to that in a minute. But if you don't make a balanced portfolio, that some of the companies will grow to be large corporations, it's going to be very difficult for us as an industry and as individuals to make the returns. So I think this is going to be changing, maybe not very quickly, but reality have created a situation that today, from 90 funds in 2000 in Israel, there are less than 20 today. From 900 funds in the US in 2000, there are less than 400 today. And this is not because people just, they got sick and tired of this section. So I think in that aspect, you will see a change. And I think it's a very important change. I want to go to another direction, which there is a big debate here, and which sectors can grow the Israeli companies to be really big. Now, we saw today, and all of you have seen the statistic, that I think about 30–40% of the investments today is going to internet companies. But if we look at the history, we have seen that most large Israeli companies, and some people will say, well, this is far history, but you see that even recent successes here are coming in from semiconductors, from software, and so forth, although we have some large companies that we see still private in the internet. So where is the chances for us to grow these companies? And I'll start with you, Yair, and then both of you are coming from a completely different background in terms of what you have been successful in.
I think that's the root to everything in Israel is technology. So, and although I'm coming from the internet sectors, I'm coming from, it's basically what I'm doing at the end of the day, even if I'm, or most of the companies I was involved with that were successful, although they were somehow related to the internet, at the end of it, they were technology-based companies. Yes, the end market was consumers, were consumers. And I think that if you look, to the past in Israel and you see, companies like, M-System, Mercury, Checkpoint, and so on, the bigger guys, all of them are based on pure technology, and that's what we are good at. That's what we have, army, education, and so on. And that's a mistake that's, in my eyes, a lot of the VCs are doing, and also a lot of angels are doing, which is going to invest in very cool applications, which has nothing to do with technology, really hard to do it out of Israel, really hard to do it anyhow, not only out of Israel, because the statistics are, the chances of success are really, really low when you go to aim for consumers. And I don't think that we proved till now, sadly, that we are able to build really big, consumer-oriented companies which are not based on technology. So if I was a VC or an angel, I would go and aim getting involved with something that has pure technology advantage and not pure, I don't know, content or some sort of a game or some sort of I don't know, web application.
So what you're saying, the chances that the next Facebook or Groupon will come from Israel are practically zero?
I'm not saying zero, but very close to zero.
Dov?
I had a walk yesterday in the place I'm being. It's a place called Yarkona village, with one of your colleagues, which actually is living the task of being a VC. And he said that after the many years he's a VC, his conclusion, I'm quoting from him, is that what's really important is, you say it as well, the people. If 20 years ago someone would say that Israel will do something at Flash, today there are about 10 Israeli companies that are doing Flash. Israel is actually number one in the world in companies that are dealing with Flash controller. It's because that's an idea I had then, and it could be something else, and it could be whatever. I truly believe that what made it a success, it's not me, it's the people around that really made it as it is. The right thing to do is invest in good people. Clearly, good people should come with good technology, should come with good idea, should come with a team, should be with whatever is required. But the basic thing is the right person.
I will add my 2 cents here. I completely agree that basically if we make companies that are based on differentiating technology, it doesn't matter if it goes to consumer or does semiconductors, the chances for Israeli companies to be much more successful in those aspects are really good. And we have the last 1 minute, and I'll give each one of you 1 sentence of conclusion, and then I'll conclude.
I think it's mainly, I don't think we have too many entrepreneurs in the audience, but actually for the guy that was before me, the lawyer, the pre-exit and so on, let's concentrate on building big companies and businesses and not concentrating on having exits. The exit will come.
You promised a debate, but I think that there is no debate between us.
Well, I think there is a good consensus here, but I want to give you kind of a word of real hope. I believe that the Israeli high-tech today is at a point that the opportunity into the next 10 years, in my opinion, is much bigger than it was in the early 90s even. Because I think people, a lot of kind of zigzagging, a lot of directions that people went through, including venture capitalists, entrepreneurs in the last 10 years, a lot of this kind of got bottomed down. And what I see today, and I'll give you 1 point of statistic, is that there are today, Goldman Sachs last year did a survey of how many companies are here that have revenues of over $30 million. A year ago, it was about 75 companies. There are close to 100 today, which I can tell you from a point of view of venture capitalists, we have not seen such a phenomena. I don't want to say ever since, but at least in the last 15 years that I'm in the venture capital business, we have not seen such a big number of companies that have private companies, most of them venture-backed, that have significant revenues like this. That kind of gives me the hope that out of this big pool of companies, some of them will continue all the way and really create some large companies, because I think for us, it's not an if, it's a pure necessity. Thank you very much.